Hello, and welcome to our webinar, How AI Can Cut Your Software Development Costs in Half. My name is Colin Cardwell, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at AIgile Dev. In this webinar, we'll look at quite a few things. We'll start off with who is AIgile Dev and explain who we are and what we do. Then we'll have a look at the state of AI in general and just how fast that's moving. We'll have a look at the change that we really must make. We're in the middle of an AI revolution, and if you're not making the change now, I guarantee you will be soon. We'll also have a look at the risk though. It's important to understand the risks if we're going to make these changes. We're then going to have a look at the impact on people and specifically look at the agile process and the different roles involved and how they're all impacted. We're then going to have a look at the tools and the tools of the trade and specifically some of the tools we use. We'll then look at your next steps and what you've got to look at next. And then we'll wrap up with our $25,000 giveaway. So hang on to the end if you want to find out a bit more about that. So who are AIgile Dev? Well, we are AIgile Dev. We're a relatively young business, but we've grown out of a business called Third Sense that had been around for around 20 years and had built lots of different pieces of software over the years. And we started AIgile Dev specifically looking at how we could create software faster, better, with lower costs, and using AI to do that so that we could produce better outcomes for our customers. And over the last 12 months, we have developed these processes using AI and really created a much smarter way to develop software. And we're going to cover a little bit about how we do that today. But the team is the same, and so it's the same team that brought you a whole range of different software. So you may be familiar with Reading Eggs, the team that created that originally, the Pfizer My Pharmacy Rules app, the Ansarada business M&A game, the business simulation game. There's the Lion Co. Dealmaker, which is a negotiation training app. And of course, Cochlear, Bring Back the Beat, which helped transform the lives of many cochlear implant users. And then, of course, Drop Into Maccas, which is #1 in the Australian app stores for some time. And then JobFit, an app for the Department of Jobs and Small Business to motivate job seekers to keep looking for work. And in fact, the team has worked with all of these businesses over the last 10, 15 years or so. And so it's a very broad experience of creating a wide range of different pieces of software. Well, what type of software do we create? Well, websites and web apps, of course, mobile apps, desktop apps, server applications and APIs, cross-platform applications, games and gamification apps. Of course, we still do that. New projects, we work from start on the ground up, but we're also increasingly working with legacy software rebuilds as well. And in fact, AI can be a great way to take some pre-existing software that is out of date and bring that up to date with some modern frameworks and modern software languages. Let's dive into the specifics of this webinar though, and how AI can cut your software development costs in half. How do we actually do that? Well, there's a very famous statement or quote from Bill Gates here that people often overestimate what will happen in the next 2 years and underestimate what will happen in 10. And I'm guilty of this myself, he says. So, and Bill said this in 1996, reflecting on his 1995 book, The Road Ahead, where he tried to make a number of predictions about the internet itself. And look, time will tell as to whether what's happening in AI now becomes bigger than the internet, but I suspect we might look back on these couple of years that we're in the middle of now in the same way that we look back on sort of 95, 96, 97 and those early days of the internet, and just how transformational they started to make the world. Except a lot's happened in the last 30 years. And in fact, now things are happening a lot faster. So we need to cross out years and talk about months. And we need to really think about what's happening in weeks rather than 10 years, because things are moving at an incredible pace now, much, much faster. And in fact, there's new launches of AI products every day at the moment. Let's have a look at what's happening in the world of AI. A few things to think about here. Forbes says AI is a growing industry with projections showing an annual growth rate of 37.3% between now and 2030. Gartner reports that over 300 new AI tools and software services have been launched this year alone. Precedence Research found that the global artificial intelligence market was valued at 454 billion US dollars already. McKinsey report forecasts that AI advancement could affect around 15% of the global workforce between 2016 and 2030. And that same report claims software engineering will be one of the functions most impacted by AI. And so it's really important to start thinking about how this is going to impact your business and how this is going to impact your software development processes. And there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. So you've probably got to think about which you are. And we've got some dinosaurs here talking about how adapt or die is rubbish, and we know what happened to them. And again, this is something we see quite a lot of. And you know, there's a lot of people in the wait and see mode, and they're not really taking AI seriously enough yet. And they may be playing around the edges, but they're not really having a serious look at it yet. And I think they could get left behind. So what is the change that we've got to make? And really, if you're not seriously looking at how you can use AI across all areas of business, you should be. In fact, what we see a lot of people doing is a very reactive approach where they're sort of saying, oh, we'll wait and see, we'll let people have a little play, and if anything works, we'll let that rise to the top. But it's unplanned, it's having very little impact on their business, and often there's a lot of risks associated with that approach as well. So really, this is like any other significant change in a business. You need to understand the change, you need to plan the change, implement the change, and communicate the change. And a planned, proactive approach to integrating AI is going to be far more effective than just a sort of ad hoc, reactive approach. And will really help your people manage the process better. But if you don't want to do that internally yet with software development, we've already gone through that process. And so you can also use us for your software development, maybe test us out on a project, and we can show you how that works. But you do have to consider the risks, and there are a number of risks. So let's have a look at 10 risks we've identified in implementing AI in your business. The first, of course, is accuracy and accountability. You can't just let the AI loose and do anything. You have to keep a close eye on it and make sure that it's accurate and make sure the accountability is with humans at this stage. You need to look at the skills gap. There are things that AI can do and things that it can't. It's not the answer to everything. But there are some things that it does very, very well and can perhaps fill some of your skill gaps. By the same token, you will need people to do some aspects. Privacy, very important. We anecdotally talk to a lot of people who are copying and pasting customer data and proprietary code into free versions of ChatGPT or ChatGPT-like software. And of course, that's being absorbed by the large language models, and that is a serious risk. Many businesses, it's probably breach of contract with many of their customers. There's, of course, potential for bias, and so again, you need to review and look at what the AI is doing. There's often a lack of transparency. We saw recently that Channel 9 made some adjustments using AI to a politician, and the politician wasn't very happy about it. And again, there was no acknowledgement that they'd used AI until a complaint came through. And so there needs to be transparency that you're using AI, and clarity, I don't think it's something that you should be hiding. There's then ethics, and you need to look carefully at some of the ethical considerations in using AI. There's copyright and IP protection, and we touched on that a little before, but have a look at the data that you're using with large language models and whether or not that can be public or not. There's also regulatory compliance. You need to make sure that you still comply. It's something that doesn't necessarily affect all industries, but it certainly can affect you, and you should keep an eye on that. There are costs, of course, and it's very easy to think that AI is cheap and so you should use it, but there are costs, and you need to be aware of the costs and the benefit associated with the costs to make sure that it makes business sense to use AI. And of course, we also have to be careful about the end of humanity, because who knows? It could take over the world. And, might not be this year, but who knows? We've certainly got to be careful about that. So let's have a look at some of the people impact, and to sort of frame that, we have a look, and this is really what we did as a business. Is we took the standard agile process for developing software of plan, design, develop, test, deploy, review, launch as a cycle of development, and said, how can we use AI in each of those areas? And of course, what a lot of people are sometimes unaware of is for each of those areas, there are people involved and roles involved. And so we have product owners, product managers, and project managers involved in the planning stage. We have software architects, visual design, UX, UI design in that design phase. We have on the software development side, potentially a whole raft of different specialists and expertise, depending on what you're creating, but certainly server side, client side, mobile, desktop, software engineers, and so a whole bunch of people potentially there. There's then test engineers, there is DevOps, there is then, again, we bring back a product owner, product manager, project manager in the review cycle, and potentially others as well in that process. And then when we launch, we'll have community management, we have launch marketing, technical support, and there's a whole bunch of roles. And so what we've done is we've looked at what tools will work best for each of these roles and how these people have got to change in the way that they work. And we really started to understand quite early on that it's a kind of a headspace change that the people have to make, and it works for some and not for others. The way we best like to describe this is to start to think about it as a master-apprentice relationship, with the AI tools being the apprentice. And what that means is that we need to think of our people now less as doers, but more as trainers, supervisors, managers, and leaders, and their AI tools are their apprentice that they work with. But in order to get the best out of them, they need to brief them thoroughly. They need to review their work and make changes and improvements as required. They need to give feedback. And really what we start to see is that with these tools, we roughly, and it's different in different situations, but we roughly double the output of these people. And typically the cost of the tools is dramatically lower than the cost of another employee. And that's where we're seeing this sort of 50% reduction in how people work, in the cost when people work with AI tools effectively in a planned and strategic way. So we look at all of these roles and we have different tools that work for each of these people. And some of them are generalist tools, and we will use some of those. And some of them are much more specific, designed to help in particular areas. So we'll run through some of those tools that we use now. Perhaps one of the biggest changes we made was to move over to ClickUp as our project management tool. ClickUp have made a big investment into AI, and built into the project management features is AI tools right through the way. And we're just going to show you a short video from ClickUp, which kind of demonstrates that in a short while. But that's used by everybody across the whole team. As is ChatGPT as a generalist tool. We have the commercial version, so all of our data is secure, and we use that all the time. And we share our results and the large language learnings across the whole team. When it comes to the design side, we use Adobe Firefly, and that's integrated into a number of the Adobe tools. But we also use Figma for design, but we specifically use a couple of Figma plugins. There's UX Pilot and Musho. And UX Pilot is very good at creating wireframes based on prompts, and Musho, again, will actually do whole designs based on prompts. Now, they're not finished designs, but they save a lot of time. And again, particularly if you write good prompts and you're specific about the colors and the fonts and what you're trying to achieve, we're finding that these tools are very good at going that first step. Still needs editing, still needs tidying up, but it saves a lot of that sort of basic setup time when you're creating a new piece of software. For the developers themselves, GitHub Copilot and Swim we use. Swim is particularly good because it does an auto-generation of documentation as you go along. GitHub Copilot, now Microsoft, has a huge database of pre-existing software to draw on, and also ChatGPT is used as well. Scribe we use for, again, automating the documentation process, and that can be incredibly effective, very, very fast. Still needs some editing, but again, saves a tremendous amount of time. Then testing we're using for automating the testing process, and again, using AI to manage that quite thoroughly. So these are some of the tools we're using every day. We're always looking at new tools and exploring new tools. This is not sort of fixed in stone because the whole space is evolving so quickly. But all of these tools are making a really big contribution to how we work at the moment. Now, this is a short video from ClickUp, and it just gives some insight as to how AI can be used to great effect.
Are you kidding me? There's no way. Actually, maybe we can. Let me see what we can do. Wow, this is actually pretty good. Time to loop in the team. All right, team, we can do this. Everybody aligned on what needs to happen?
Way ahead of you, my friend. Let's select engineering, Write technical specifications doc, fill this out, and generate. Whoa. Got it.
My turn. I'll select design, brainstorm user journeys, fill in the details, generate, and we're good to go.
All right, let's do this. Select marketing, outline email campaign, add my details, and go. Sweet.
Wow, way to go, team. Now, what about the announcement blog? Okay, let's give this a shot. Wow, that looks good. Maybe a little more excitement. Nice. Sweet. Oh wow, that is a lot of praise. Way to go, team.
Now, I have to confess, it's not quite like that in the real world, but that's just a promo video. But you kind of get the idea about how AI can now be used to really get things going and moving much quicker. An example that we use now is we record all of our work in progress meetings with our clients now, get an automated transcript, and ClickUp will take that and convert it to tasks automatically. So project management time dramatically reduced. Now, if this is something that's sounding interesting and something that you think you would like to do, and you would like to have a look at how you might get a piece of software developed from us at half the cost, or you want to have a look at maybe how you could implement this process internally or similar processes internally, there's a couple of first steps from us. So obviously option one is that we develop the software for you, but option two is that you have your own team and you want to look at proactively implementing this. Well, if we're developing the software, then what we look at is a design, analysis, scoping project with wireframes, project scope and plan, the business case, and typically that process costs around 5K. And if you have your own team, we look at an AI transformation plan and the creation of that. And again, process review, looking at all of your existing processes, look at the project scope and plan, what tools, how it's going to be implemented, how we can manage that change process for you to implement that. Again, a business case, what the expected savings will be and the costs. And typically that first phase is around 5K. So we have these two offerings, both around about $5,000. One if you want to use ours, and the other if you want to bring this sort of thinking in-house. And so we've also got a $25,000 giveaway. So how does that work? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to say that we have 5 of these, and we don't really mind which one that you do, whether it's that design and scoping for us working on it, or that change and AI transformation plans. And we're going to go and do those free of charge to the first 5 requests that come in, and each one of those is valued at $5,000. So have a think about that. Have a think about AI. Make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn, and if you haven't already, sign up to our newsletter at AIgile.dev. And thank you very much for having a listen and discovering how AI can cut your software development costs in half.